Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we'll make them available on our website and newsletter. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. We serve a very broad client base, spanning across all industries. Without further ado, we would like to welcome Andrea Ames, CEO and founder of Ideal Point, Rebecca Anderson, Ph.D., Associate Professor, University Writing Program, University of California, Davis, Carlos Lavilla, Ph.D., Associate Professor and Director of Professional and Technical Writing, Virginia Tech, and Stan Doherty, Technical Publications Manager, Simplicity Corporation.
All right, thank you very much, Adam, and welcome to the webinar. And here's our title slide. We're going to talk about the state of education in technical communication. And I want to point out that Stan has a new affiliation. So Stan is currently with Oracle Corporation. Next slide. And we have day jobs and we have primary affiliations, but I don't think we are the typical academia or industry professionals. All of us have kind of one foot in academia and one foot in industry. Some of us step stronger in one field. For example, Rebecca and I are more in academia than in industry, but we still do some things related to industry. And Andrea and Stan also do some work in academia, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Andrea. I think Andrea is silent. Yeah, Rebecca, do you want to take it over?
Sure.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay.
Sorry, I
No problem.
didn't get myself off mute.
Well, I'm Rebecca Anderson, and I am in the University Writing Program at UC Davis. It's an independent program, and I teach primarily professional writing and technical communication courses. I also do research, and I have a couple projects ongoing right now, one of which is with Carlos Evia, and we're looking at the state of education, really interested in documenting perspectives and suggestions of experts working in academia and industry on how curricula might be re-envisioned to prepare students to be leaders and innovators in our changing profession. So that's an ongoing project, and I think I'll stop there.
Great. So I'll jump back in. Apologies for the the technical mishap there on my part, not the technology's part. I'm Andrea Ames, and as Carlos mentioned, my primary role is as a content experience strategy consultant for my company, which is called Ideal Point Group. But I also, I've been in the field on the industry side for about 35 years. But for the last 20 or so, I've been teaching, and for the last 12 or 13, I can't remember exactly how many, I've been the program chair for the University of California at Santa Cruz extension program in technical writing and communication. So I do have a broad interest in this particular topic, and especially where the practical and industry side meet the academic and skill development side, since the certificate program is really kind of between that traditional degree and the professional side of the field. So I will stop there and turn it over to Carlos or Stan.
Stan, do you want to go?
Sure can. Hi, Stan Doherty. Welcome from all the folks in Boston. My background's in academia, as you've heard from the other folks. I've been it was 13 years as a college professor and 30 years as somebody working in the industry as a writer, a manager, IA, that kind of thing. And right now I lead a central information architecture team at Oracle Corporation. So we've got a lot of responsibilities, and we're always looking for ways to reach out to the community, both the customers who we're serving and also the folks who are in academia. We have a lot of outreach there. And also I work on with Carlos and other folks on the OASIS DITA technical committee. Been with it for since day one. So that's me.
And finally, I am Carlos Evia, and my primary job is that I'm an associate professor of technical communication at Virginia Tech. But as Stan mentioned, I'm also in the DITA technical committee, and I co-chair the lightweight DITA subcommittee with Michael Priestley. Next slide. So here's a quick overview, and the upside down cat is what came up when I Googled overview. So that's just silly, but anywho. Is the overview for today's presentation, and we're going to have a discussion of the roles and hiring needs in technical communication. What does the workplace of technical communication look like today? The many shapes that the field has in academia. We're going to talk about how can we bridge the gap between academia and industry and describe that gap. Stan is going to talk about onboarding programs in industry, and he's going to give us a case example of something that he has been developing. And Rebecca and I are going to talk about the ongoing research project that she mentioned about developing the next generation of leaders and innovators in technical communication. And then we will have time for questions and answers. But before we get there, next slide, and we're going to deploy the first poll, Adam. So I don't know if you can do that now. What do you want to learn or take away from the webinar today? And we have options here that you can select one or more.
So Carlos, with about half the attendees voting, right now, it looks like everyone has voted for what the current landscape of technical communication education is and what accounts for it. 36% have responded how to build productive relationships with academic programs and technical communications. 21% is where to look for professional development opportunities, and 14% have answered where to look for good college hires.
Very interesting.
So I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds and then I'll close it. Okay. Okay, Carlos, whenever you're ready.
All right. So Andrea, are you ready for your thing?
I am, and I'm off mute this time.
There you go.
So if we could go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So in my sort of straddle position across the certificate program that I am the chair for and my full-time job in industry, even though I am not a hiring manager and have never been one, I have actually spent a great deal of my time thinking about and looking at the skills needed to, that might indicate excellence in technical communication, and that would also lead to an aptitude in great leadership in technical communication in particular. So basically what I'm seeing, and especially I left IBM a little less than a year ago, and I've been consulting, and especially what I'm seeing with my clients is very validated in what I saw at IBM, and that is employers are seeing some specific skills coming out of college, very strong writing skills, good basic technical skills, really good ideas, a lot of enthusiasm and passion. But there are many things that employers need from new college hires that they're not seeing as much. And those are things like good personal leadership and ability to deal with ambiguity, and some thinking skills like systems thinking and critical thinking and problem solving skills that may not be as well developed as employers would like to see. And I think the interesting thing here is that what I would call the mechanics, like writing and technical skills, and the personal behaviors like enthusiasm and passion and being ideators, those things we're seeing really strongly. But some of the things that tend to come from experience in the workplace, and some things that tend to come from specific kinds of learning opportunities or specific kinds of life experiences that might build things like systems thinking skills or critical thinking skills or problem solving skills. Some of these things are, as I said, maybe not as well developed as employers would like to see. So I think this sets a tone for where we can start looking at the relationship between industry and academia, and where we might like to see academic programs developed in directions that would help fill some of these needs that employers are looking for, and where we sort of see the evolution, I think, of the technical communication workplace. In many cases, technical communicators come into or used to come into what I would consider to be a very mechanical job. They interview, they write, they create documentation. And I think over the past dozen or 15 years in particular, there's been so much change and evolution toward content strategy and information architecture and user experience and so on, even within the content space, that these other skills are becoming more and more interesting, and they're being recognized more by potential employers. So if we could go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about what those kinds of activities are that are becoming more and more necessary in the workplace, and what the skills and hiring needs are as a result. So some things are never going to change. I call these table stakes, right? These are the things you need to actually come to the table and play the game. Content development skills, obviously, writing and editing, organization and structure at least a basic level, and beyond text, being able to do a little bit with video, and maybe even have thought about how voice activated interfaces or voice interfaces might play into the overall content experience. After that, most of these other things are things that some programs really focus on and do really well, and some programs don't focus on. And you sort of, as a hiring manager or a potential employer, you get kind of a mix of content design, people who can perform content design activities and information architecture activities. There are not that many people out there, frankly, that I've found percentage-wise in TechCom who are good at content strategy coming out of academic programs, mostly because, again, in my personal opinion, that's something that takes experience. So that's a little more difficult to get in an academic program. Can be done, but it's a little more difficult to get. Research skills. Often we see organizations leaving research activities to design and user experience teams, but that's great if you have one. If you don't have a design or user experience team, you still need that research for content and the content experience, because more and more we're being expected to design the content experience. So that's really, really becoming, I think, more and more recognized as a set of activities that need to be done within a content organization. And then understanding something about, a little bit about interaction and visual design, enough to be able to evaluate whether that interaction and visual design is progressing the message appropriately and presenting the content in the right way and communicating in the right way. That's really important. And of course, being able to design a data collection mechanism, or not the mechanism itself, but the kind of data that's collected, and being able to analyze that data so you're sure you're collecting the right kind of data and you're analyzing it in the right way, so that you're getting some very data-oriented understanding of the efficiency and, the effectiveness and value of the content that you are presenting to your users or your potential customers or whoever your audience is. So the kinds of skills are obviously slightly different than just the writing and editing and organization and structure skills. There's some leadership skills involved here. Often the content organization is looking to be more integrated, and when you're doing things like content strategy and content experience design and data collection and analysis, often that involves other organizations or other functions within an organization, other content teams. So this collaboration and stakeholder management and leadership, these are really, really, really important. Business case development, those are all things that are going to help you to create the kind of ecosystem around your content so that you can do integrated content things like content strategy and end-to-end experience design and so on. And then some things that are, again, seem like maybe personal work habits like prioritization and productivity. These are things, frankly, in my view, probably the biggest challenge perhaps, or our biggest learning opportunity in the tech comm field is prioritization. We tend to take whatever people throw at us, sort of shrug, look a little shorter as a result of all the work we're taking on, and just go figure out how to fit it in. And that causes a lot of problems that we won't get into here. But I think prioritization, while it seems like a personal skill or personal habit, that's something that plays a very big role in a healthy content organization. And then, of course, systems thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, those are skills that apply to just about everything on the left. And of course, are things that our employers are really seeing more of a need for. So I think these two kind of overviews of what we're seeing in the workplace today and where the expectation gap is, and then what kinds of skills are really necessary and activities that are actually happening on content teams today, and what skills you can map to those and think about, and where the hiring needs are around those skills. That hopefully this kind of sets up the conversation for a little bit of a deeper dive around how we address that gap and how we look at industry versus the academic programs that are producing our technical communicators of tomorrow. With that, back to you, Carlos.
Thank you very much. And Adam, if you can deploy our second poll, please. And this is, have you completed a degree or program, be it a concentration, a minor, a certificate in technical communication?
So, Carlos, was about half the attendees voting. 47% have said no. 25% have said yes, associate's or a bachelor's degree. 15% have said yes, professional certification. And 10% have indicated to both yes, a graduate degree, and then another 10% saying yes, academic certificate or professional certificate.
Great. Carlos, I can take over, if that's all right. Should we wait a little longer, Adam, or?
No, we had most of the attendees voting.
Okay, great. Could we go to the next slide? So it sounds like nearly half of those who are listening in today have not completed a degree or a program in technical communication. What's interesting is that 25% have indicated that they've completed at least an associate or a bachelor's degree. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about is some demographic data that Joanne Hackus and I have collected through a study that we started conducting in 2016. So I'll give you just a little bit of background. Joanne and I did a survey a little over a year ago, in which we were collecting information from people who identified as practicing technical communicators, wanting to learn more about their experiences with and perspectives on academic research. So one of the questions that we asked of survey respondents was, what degrees or programs have you completed? We received 181 completed responses, and so that's a fair number of people who have identified as technical communicators. And so this particular group, a little over 75% indicated that they had completed a bachelor's degree, and a little over 40% indicated that they had completed a master's degree. What's interesting, if you look at the bachelor's degree area of this group, only 7% had indicated that they had actually completed a major, minor, or concentration in technical communication or professional communication, given that the field in academia, at least, is often referred to as technical and professional communication. What the breakdown really does show is that there are a wide range of degrees that were identified that represent a wide range of fields, including the STEM fields, disciplines, social sciences, and some other liberal arts and humanities disciplines. Of those who had completed a bachelor's degree, nearly 30%, 29% here, indicated they had completed a degree that is in a field that's maybe related to technical communication, such as in English or in communications. So the 7% finding was interesting, and that is actually quite a bit lower than the 25% attending today who have indicated they've completed an associate's or a bachelor's degree. The other finding that was quite interesting to us was that of those who had completed a master's degree, 33% indicated they had completed a degree in technical communication. So those who have a master's degree in technical communication seems to be a much higher number than those who have a bachelor's degree. What we don't know is what accounts for the difference. It's potentially a generational gap. There's the possibility that a lot of the programs we now have in place in academia were not available when some of the respondents were undergraduate students. So that is something. The other thing that I also thought was interesting, for our respondents who had completed a master's degree, 31% had a degree in a related area, such as computer science, information science, or linguistics. So that's just kind of an overview of what at least Joanne and I have collected in terms of what are the educational paths to which people are coming to technical communication. It's very varied at this point. So with that, Carlos, I'll transition to you to talk a little bit more about the landscape of education.
Sure. Adam, you can do the next slide, please. And here we have the following two slides are going to be about the landscape of all the different programs and courses that in academia are labeled as technical communication and technical writing. Adam, if you can give me one more click so we can see the text. Thank you very much. And before I go deep into this slide, I want to acknowledge the work of Lisa Melonzo from the University of South Florida, who has conducted a lot of research that is giving us most of the numbers and the figures that we have about how many programs in technical communication at the different levels of undergraduate and graduate we have, mainly in the United States. So for those of you who are not that familiar with the academic offer labeled technical communication and technical writing in the US, let's be honest, in many other countries, things are completely different. I can tell you from my background when I was in Mexico, there are no such thing as programs in technical communication, but that is the topic for another webinar. That is way too complicated for right now. So we have the technical writing service course, and this is the one course on the principles and the basics of technical writing that engineers, scientists, students who are in engineering or sciences have to take. And it's one course in which they learn some probably principles of rhetorical arrangement and communication, and then they go into the structure of some genres of professional communication, like a proposal, a report, and a set of instructions. Then we have undergraduate programs, and the undergraduate programs are divided in minors. Minors are about 3 to 5 courses, and one of them is frequently an internship. They send students out there to do some work related to technical and professional communication, and they get academic credit for the internship. And the majors can be either full-fledged majors or emphasis majors. The full-fledged majors are those who are nothing but courses in technical communication as a requirement, and the concentration are degrees that are housed quite frequently in departments of English, and students take some courses in literature, some courses in critical thinking, critical writing, and then there's a core set of courses in technical communication. Those are the emphasis programs, and like I said, most of the majors, either full-fledged or emphasis in this country, are housed in departments of English, but things have been changing slowly in the past 5-6 years, and I don't know what the tendency is going to be in the near future. Then we also have extension programs, and those are not necessarily academic degrees, but you take individual courses, or sometimes you complete a professional certificate. That can be a collection of 1 to 10 courses, but about the majority of these programs go in 4 courses for people who have already graduated from another degree, not necessarily in technical communication, and they want to take some courses in technical communication. And masters and PhDs, there's about, and this is data from Lisa Melonzo that came in the mid-2000s. She identified about 84 programs that offer master degrees in technical communication or something that sounded like technical communication. And then we also have PhD programs. And a thing that has been happening recently is that many of these programs that even 10 years ago they were labeled as technical communication are starting to change names, and technical communication is no longer the queen when it comes to the titles of what these courses have. So Adam, can you go to the next slide?
All right. So I'm going to say a little bit more about programs and degrees in technical communication. So the most recent survey, as Carlos had mentioned, of undergraduate degree programs in technical professional communication was conducted by Lisa Melonzo and Sally Henschel in 2012. So this is now dated 6 years. They reported the results of the survey in a 2013 article that was published in the SDC's journal Technical Communication. So you certainly could find the article there. And we have some references at the end of our slide deck where the article has a full citation. So Lisa and Sally identified 185 undergraduate programs in technical and professional communication in the US that offered majors or emphases. So that would be that offered full-fledged majors or emphasis majors. And that's what's significant about that number is the previous survey had been conducted in 2005. And so within 7 years, there was an increase of 131% increase of programs in the field in 7 years. And so we don't have a more current survey that gives us a sense of are the numbers still growing? But I will return to that point in a minute and talk a little bit more about some of the work that Lisa's been conducting. So the full-fledged majors, as Carlos had mentioned, these are majors that have a core of required courses that are related to professional and technical communication. They might include rhetorical theory and methods. They might include introduction to the field courses, information design courses, courses that looked at multimedia production and integration. But the required core is going to be related to the actual degree. Whereas emphasis degrees, and in this case, there was 121 emphasis degree programs that were identified. These degrees tend to be more generalized in their objectives, and because emphasis degrees are often offered through departments of English, they are, in many cases, going to require more literature courses. Sometimes there'll be more creative writing courses, journalism courses, and then they'll offer, in general, fewer specialized courses. And what students will tend to do if they're in a department of English that offers an emphasis degree is then, if they want to go into technical professional communication, they'll select elective courses that help them to specialize in the field. And depending on the program, that might be 4 courses, it might be as few as 3 courses. So they don't have as many courses there to work with. And if you can click again, Adam, to show the visual. All right, so what this graph shows, also from the article that I referenced by Lisa and Sally, is it gives you a sense of the program's institutional location, where are degrees in technical communication located, where they offered. So the most degrees are still largely offered through departments of English, as you can see here. Humanities also, there are also full departments of humanities that offer degrees that focus on technical professional communication. There are a growing number of departments that do offer degrees, and the plus sign here means it's a technical communication plus something else department. An example of that might be a department of technical communication and rhetoric, or a department of technical and scientific communication. And then there are a number of other program locations in which programs in the field are offered. There are not a lot, but there are some full departments of technical communication, which you'll see on the bottom. That number has increased since the previous survey was conducted. And so we are seeing a change there in degrees kind of moving out of English into either independent programs or programs that are specific to technical communication. Let's see. So Adam, would you mind changing the slide, please? Okay. And this slide says a little bit more about the courses that are, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about this piece. I wanted to mention an update on some data that Lisa Melanson has been collecting. She had a recent blog post that she published on her personal blog in February 2018, a couple of months ago. And she, in her most recent research, has identified 305 institutions that offer degree programs. And I understand that she's going to be publishing some work on her latest research very soon. And so this number basically shows that English is still the department that houses the most programs in the field. Humanities and writing is significantly lower, but there are a number of programs that are kind of moving out of departments to an actual college or actually at the school level. So there's also some change there that's happening. All right, next slide, please. Okay, and on this slide, I'll do kind of a quick overview of the types of courses that tend to be offered in the full-fledged majors in technical communication. And this, again, is also from the work of Lisa Melanson and Sally Henschel. And so in their analysis of the 65 programs that offer full-fledged majors or degrees, these are the courses that emerged as kind of the common core that are offered in the full-fledged major. So these are not the elective courses, but the kinds of courses students would be required to take in their first, second, even their third years. And so 50% of the programs that offer full-fledged majors, we're going to offer a basic course. So that's an introductory course to the practice of technical professional communication. That will often be the service course that Carlos talked about. There's often a capstone course, which is a cumulative experience for students. It'll be often the last course that they'll take in a degree program. They'll often produce a portfolio in that course and be thinking about the what next in terms of job application process and career tracks that they want to go into. Editing is still often a required course. Most programs, slightly over half, require this course, and many programs often have editing as an elective course for students, and these courses primarily will focus on technical editing. An internship is required by most programs. If it's not required, it's often almost always offered as an elective. And then there's usually an introduction to the field course, and this will be a course that really introduces students to the history and the theories of the field, which is important to give them a foundation and also an understanding of current practices in the field and where the field, how it's evolving. There's web courses, which might be a flavor of web authoring, multimedia, or occasionally even web content management. Courses will often be required, and nearly half of the programs, there's often an elective course, if it's not required, where students would get some practice in web authoring or even web content management. Document design, that may not be the most accurate title of the course, but most programs will either offer a document design or an information design course, and we don't have data in terms of what the specific focus of the course is, but some of these courses might be focused on the design of print documents. Other courses might be focused more on the design of content for multiple outputs or reassembly. And then a lot of programs will offer a genre course, and so this would be introducing students to different genres such as proposals and grants, writing reports, sometimes still writing traditional instructions, perhaps doing topic-based instruction writing. And could you click to the next portion of the slide, Adam? Okay, and I'll speak briefly on a couple other points that might be of interest. 48% of the programs offered topic courses as electives, and so topic courses can be courses where the topic changes and they're often pretty flexible. It might be a course in user experience or structured authoring, maybe even data visualization. So topics courses are really helpful when programs have faculty with particular specialty areas and they can teach a course on that area. 6% of programs that have full-fledged majors require literature courses, and this number has gone down significantly So we're seeing fewer required literature courses and more courses in these full-fledged majors focused on topics related to technical communication. 58% of programs require courses outside of the department, which speaks to a move towards interdisciplinarity. You might have students who need to take courses in computer science, design, even psychology. And then we still have, and this is kind of a point that we really need more research on, only a handful of courses specifically address XML or DITA or single sourcing or even structured authoring in these programs. So that's an area that as a field we really need to wrap our mind around and work towards developing curricula that really moves us towards more content topic-based authoring. So I will end there and turn it over to Carlos.
So in the next slide, I'm going to go quite fast through this one, so we have plenty of time for Stan to do his show. So Adam, if you give me one more click, please. We have been seeing a lot of movement in academic programs to rebrand themselves, and they're no longer called only technical communication. And I have a couple of examples here of programs that in the recent past have changed names, and the Milwaukee School of Engineering now has a title of Bachelor's in User Experience in Communication Design, and Arizona State has this Bachelor in Technical Communication, but that became an interdisciplinary program that has a concentration, optional concentration in user experience. And in Michigan State, they have a Bachelor's in Experience Architecture. And if you give me one more click, I can show an image of how UX seems to be, for many in academia, the umbrella term that is collecting many things that we used to talk about under the term of technical communication. And Andrea mentioned some of these when she had her intervention about how user experience is really all over the things that we do. Rebecca, you want to add something for this slide?
I would just mention there are a number of other programs that have rebranded, and some of the titles that are emerging as titles of the degrees they're offering are information design and communication, or if you've heard of University of Washington's program, their department is now human-centered design and engineering. So there is a movement within the last 5 years of kind of moving away from just tech comm to something that's more integrated, more interdisciplinary.
Yeah, thank you. Next slide. And here are some ways in which this come from A, the research, and B, our own experiences on how we could start bridging this gap between academia and industry. And I want to emphasize that the gap goes both ways. In many publications, there seems to be the burden of responsibility on academia. Go out and find partners in industry. But I have seen people, and I have met people in industry who are desperate to collaborate with academics, and they don't know how to do it. So some of the approaches that we have used or seen or read about in the past are to develop internship programs, not just for students, but also for faculty. Many faculty members who go the traditional route of getting an undergraduate, a master's, and a PhD, they don't have practical experience. So some companies have offered programs of internships for faculty, so they can go and work for a summer and learn something that they can then bring back directly to the classroom. Mentorship programs that can happen at the university level and also at the association level, like the Society for Technical Communication, like the Association of Teachers of Technical Writing. Those associations have programs that mentor students at all the different levels and can expand those programs to solve this problem. Offer discounts for students and academics for industry conferences. Rebecca and I have been very lucky to attend many industry conferences, and we have developed very good relationships, including, of course, Andrea and Stan. And I think that's an opportunity that we need to continue exploring. Have scholarships that come from industry that help students so they can participate in events. Invite speakers to come to the classroom, invite speakers to go to the organizations or the corporations to present what does the academic side of the discipline look like. Have faculty development programs, and this is where Stan is going to start doing his intervention, have onboarding programs that take students fresh out of college and prepare them for those entry-level positions. So if you can go with the next slide, and Stan will take over.
Hi there, Stan here. As I think Carlos mentioned, I'm one of those desperate people in industry who want to try to help. So that's my motivation. In the Boston area, you figure we've got lots of colleges and we have lots of technical communication groups, so all different flavors and titles. I figured that that was an opportunity for a little bit of a social experiment to reach out to these different types of programs, these different types of institutions, and ask them, of all the things, for example, that Carlos was just talking about, as opportunities for collaboration, which ones would rise to the top in terms of their perception of priority? What would have the biggest impact positively for them? And my interest in this area is quite selfish. I would say that in US-based enterprise technical communication organizations, such as I currently work and have mostly worked in my career, the average age is of folks about 50s, 50 to 55. So there's a big opportunity for education institutions out there basically to replace me. So part of my interest is I want not only to have somebody replace me, I want them to do a better job than I did, right? So I'm kind of desperate and committed to find out if I can help. So I'm conducting a survey in the Boston area. If you can move to the next slide, Adam, I can get into the details. So I'm inviting folks to meet with me or to do con calls or something in the next several months and ask, of all of these 10 opportunities that you see on the slide, and I'll go through them briefly, which ones would have the biggest impact positively on your department, either in terms of existing programs or in terms of enabling new programs or new courses in the curriculum? So things like technical writing repositories where they get samples, on-campus presentations, webinars, in-class, guest presentations, come in and talk, internships, taking onboarding materials that Carlos had mentioned. These are the onboarding materials are the things that we use when we get a new employee. So I need to take someone who is a college grad, right, and make them a technical communicator within about 2 or 3 months, right? So all the training materials, style guides, rules, guidelines, mentoring, all that stuff is onboarding materials and services for folks who are coming on board a high-tech company, right? And many of these actually could be repackaged, sanitized, as I say, so they could be used without references to particular company and used in academia, I believe, and that's of great interest. Tech writing samples and just resources on culture. What is Agile like? How do writers work in an Agile environment? How do they work, with waterfall? And to create a central repository for any and all of these resources. So basically, I got some feedback from the first, next slide, actually, Adam, if you could. So the preliminary feedback suggests that the most interest is number 10, someplace that folks in academia can go to get these resources of all sorts. They really want examples, number 8. They want to get the onboarding materials, 7. And then just various in-class, talks and things. And of course, this crushed my vanity because I thought they wanted to talk to me, but they really just want some sample docs, which is good. At least So in conducting this customer inquiry, we're starting to get a feel, and again, it's preliminary, but starting to get a feel for what is it from the point of view of the academic programs and the teachers there. What can we do in industry to help get things moving or try to reach out to them? So I think this is pretty interesting data. Please get in touch with me. I'll have updates for this as we go. But I figure in this little Petri dish, this test population we have in the Boston area, we might get a pretty good cross section. And so some of the colleges and institutions I'm working with are either alums or they're places I've taught or I've sent my children. So like UMass Amherst, a big campus, Harvard, we've got Merrimack College, Bentley University, Northeastern, and even Bunker Hill Community. So quite a cross section, and trying to find out for wherever they are in their program, what might help them. And again, from the discipline of customer inquiry, I think we'll get some data. Adam, next slide. Thanks. If we can develop a body of sample information for them, here are the kinds of skills and activities that we could encourage and in fact write exercises around. Linear and modular writing, Andrea mentioned this a couple times, topic-based writing, and Rebecca, content and styling. How do you move one piece of content through multiple styles or formats? How do you maintain content? How do you reuse it? Oh my God, you know, the DITA, you know, that's the holy grail for DITA. How do we redo it? You know, how do we teach students how to do that? And then how do we use this fancy metadata stuff, which should be number 5, for intelligent content assembly? How do we make that happen? How do we make that work? If we had a body of information that we could share with academia, open source stuff, we could together, I think, provide to academia a lot of information and a lot of exercises that would inculcate the skills that we really want to see. As a hiring manager, these are the skills I want, right? And I'm not seeing a lot of it coming out of the programs, to be blunt. So if there's anything I can do to help up-level this and make it happen, I'm on board. Next slide, Adam. I have a little project called Project Alcuin. You just give it a fancy name. It could be total nonsense, but if you give it a fancy name, people are kind of interested. Please go up and check this out. What this project is I took an open source doc set, maybe 30, 40 pages, Thunderbird. I have it in 3 parallel formats. I have it in Markdown, I have it in Microsoft Word, and I have it in DITA. I try to keep the content in parallel as much as possible. So students could download all of this, professors could download this, they could update it, they could modify it, they could build exercises around it, they could contribute to it to make it more. And in fact, you'd have the ability to do real-time kind of group and individual work with this content. It's something you can push against. It's something you can learn a whole lot about. And, you know, it's just my way of just starting the ball rolling to see if this has any interest or has something that maybe appeal to the academic institutions. And please, if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff, you know, please get in touch. Back to you, Carlos.
Thank you, Stan. So if you can go to the next slide, Adam, please. So Rebecca mentioned that we are currently conducting a research project and we don't have a fancy name. So we might need to find a fancy name for this project, but the big question that drives this research project is what can industry leaders, university administrators, and faculty contribute to the development of curriculum that prepares students to be leaders and innovators in technical communication? And at the same time, from the practitioner side, how can we develop collaborations that will fill this gap that Stan was documenting? The students are graduating and they have some skills, but they don't have the skills that people are expecting that they will acquire so they can perform beyond that very basic level of the entry technical writer. So to conduct this project, Rebecca and I went on the road and we have done 2 workshops. We did one at the ACM SIGDoc conference last fall with 28 participants. Most of them were from academia. And we also went to the Best Practices Conference from the Center for Information Development Management last fall. And we had 15 participants, the majority of them from industry at a managerial level. And we asked them those questions. What are the expectations that people hiring graduates from technical communication have? How are the students meeting or not meeting those requirements? And what can we do from both sides, from academia and industry, to solve this problem? And as we analyze the data with help from our undergraduate assistants, Caroline Stewart and Caitlin Heath here from Virginia Tech, they're working with us. These are the trends that we have noticed as we start to look at the data that we have gathered in our workshops and conducting interviews with leaders in industry and academia. So we have a section of changes that people would like to see in curriculum and program design, that some of those we have already mentioned in previous slides because they're directions in which the field is already going, like concentrating on interdisciplinary programs, changing the names of programs or courses to be related to content strategy, content design, content engineering, content management, that in some conversations are starting to eclipse technical communication as the term that defines our field. And we were talking about this with Andrea on Friday as we prepare for this webinar. And Andrea said that we have to be very careful when people start labeling something as content strategy or content engineering, because those are terms that actually exist in the industry. And if we develop a course that promises that it's going to be all about content strategy, but we're still teaching technical writing from 1985, we're not really changing anything. And we need to continue teaching technical writing 101. Those very basic skills that some people might find boring are still quite needed in the industry, and academia is, of course, prepared to teach those and has been teaching those for a very long time. And of course, also collaborating with practitioners and managers. Rebecca, do you want to talk about the next one?
Sure. So the next section, we were we asked questions of both workshops of participants to help to get them to talk more about what skills and competencies, changes in what skills and competencies are actually being taught. What changes do they want to see, and what's actually needed in industry. And some of the changes that have really emerged as key themes is really helping students to understand that diversity is a workplace reality, and it's something that we need to be talking about in the classroom, and not just diversity, but also global communication, working on diverse intercultural teams, really trying to make that part of our core. Collaboration with or without an introduction to Agile, so focusing more on collaboration, team-oriented projects, working on teams, and that relates to project management. Really trying to integrate more focus on structured authoring and teaching structured authoring as a building block of Content X. I think I could safely say that the majority of programs are still focused on a very document-centric approach to information development, and we really need to be moving away from that and getting into a topic-based, structured authoring-based approach. Critical thinking and data-based argumentation, quite a few of our participants talked about, and the data-based argumentation came up from a number of people who were talking about the ability to conduct research and analyze data and make rhetorical arguments. That's a skill set that is now hugely important that we need to focus more on. And then the last one, personality. A lot of participants from both industry and academia talked about the importance of personality, and the question is, how do we teach this? But I'll say to the point on personality, if we think about that, if we break that up into thinking about traits, some of the traits that it seems organizations are looking for are college grads who are curious and adaptable, who are good problem solvers, who are teachable, quick learners, lifelong learners. So these are the kinds of traits that a lot of people were talking about. And so it brings up the question, okay, how do we get there? How do we teach this? So those are some preliminary findings that have emerged from our study, and we are going to be moving on to conducting interviews and surveys to really try to parse out what are the changes that are necessary.
And Adam, I think we're going to start taking questions now, because what we have left in the slides are references for the sources that we have mentioned and cited, but we can share those with the audience later, and I want to give time for some questions.
Great, thank you, everyone. The first question has come in is, are graduates of technical communication programs being hired for technical communication positions?
Stan here. Yeah, I mean, when a hiring manager in consultation with a department opens a requisition, an open rec, that tends to be very targeted. So you're either trying to fill a gap that you have, which is going to be targeted for UX or technical writing or something like that, some development, or it's going to be something that's an open program like a college incentive hiring program. So by and large, yeah, the recs that I've opened are very targeted. I want a junior person to work on this project and to have these skills and to bring this to the party. Fairly targeted. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Andrea. I would say that the larger and more specialized the team is, the more likely that they'll be hiring folks who have actual degrees or training or education in tech comm. So if you're going to work for a very small startup, for example, they may not even recognize that tech comm is a thing still, which is kind of frightening. But the larger the organization is, you know, even a smaller organization that has a handful of technical writers or Marcom people or product training folks is likely, excuse me, is likely to, I'm not sure what happened there, is likely to hire from a specialized degree program. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I think I swallowed wrong there. So I think that if you're coming from a specialized degree program, you will find that the job postings from larger companies that have more specialized roles are more likely to sound like they're looking for people like you.
Thank you for those answers, Stan and Andrea. The next question that has come in is, technical writing skills are transferable to so many other fields. What are the core skills we should be teaching for people who might move to compliance writing, process analysis, quality management, or instructional design?
Stan here. I think the bullets that Andrea had earlier on about critical thinking, prioritization, being able to organize information and find some way to structure it are transferable anywhere, right? And emphasizing that in a program should make the program more attractive, first of all, and second of all, should demonstrate to folks that what they're learning here is applicable across the field. What do you think so, Andrea? I mean, those are the skills.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would add into that, anything that you can do in a program that gives folks the ability to do what Rebecca was calling this data-based argumentation. So what on my slides, I think the parallel to that is stakeholder management and business case development, and just general leadership. So being able to present an opinion, have a good argument, and be able to influence the people around you to follow you in this program, or to support you in a program, give you money, resources, time, whatever. These are also really, really valuable skills. At any level, they probably sound like things, oh, only a manager would do, or a team lead, or someone. That's not true. You will have things that you want to do that you think are important at any level. And so those kinds of skills are really, really valuable. And I would say, you know, in my certificate program, we've talked many times with the other business and management department folks, the folks in software, the folks in project management, the folks in the marketing certificate, and we've talked about getting a multidisciplinary kind of project together where folks would have to get on a team, they'd have to figure out how to build a little project, get it documented, have a project manager work with it and market it, right? So just a very small but fairly realistic slice of the real world. And that's where I think we're seeing the potential for learning these kinds of skills in a much more realistic way. So if there's any, there are probably other ways to do it, but if the very creative academics out there can think of ways to bring these kinds of things into your programs and teach the kinds of things that make students more collaborative and more influential and able to make a great argument, you know, think critically about a problem and make a great rationally based, data-based argument, that is, you know, a gold mine right there.
Mm-hmm. And I would add too that this is a key point of collaboration too, where we could, through the internships and internship programs, that's a great way to get students,
yes,
you know, out into the workplace. And if they're interested in compliance writing, or if they're interested in, you know, instructional design, to do an internship where they are getting some experience, or to work with a mentor, or kind of be an apprentice in a way, to try to understand what does it mean
yes,
to participate in these ways. There's also ways that we could bring in more people from industry as guest speakers to talk about the many facets, right, of the field, because it's such a broad, you know, diverse field. There's so many different aspects of it. It is impossible to teach all of the aspects, but students can, depending on their needs, their goals, we can tailor instruction to an extent by connecting them with industry and people who can help them develop these skills.
Great, thank you everyone. The last question that has come in is, it's rather long, so please let me know if you need me to repeat anything. I got into the field in the 90s and have not worked where the terms agile or waterfall were used, and had no training or experience explicitly in DITA. Are there any opportunities to garner graduate certificates to enhance my skills in addition to my master's degree and 25 plus years of experience?
Well, I will just make a plug for postgraduate certificate programs, which is what my program is. Wouldn't have to be my program, but we have a core set of courses that for this person, they would probably be not that useful, but we also have a whole selection of electives where what we try to do with the electives is address things like technologies or changing work processes like waterfall versus agile, DITA, etc. So things that we don't consider to be a core, but that are changing in the industry perhaps rapidly. So, and there are other programs out there as well. I'm not just trying to sell my program, but I'm also happy to take questions about that. And I know of a few other programs, and would be happy to help someone find some courses in programs like that. And the other benefit to those is many of the ones that I know at least are entirely online. So my program is all online, which makes it very convenient. So that would be the first suggestion that comes to the top of my head, with my bias injected there.
Another advantage of exploring this stuff, this process-oriented stuff, and especially Agile, is there are entire careers that are oriented toward people who are really good communicators and negotiators. In Agile Scrum, the area I'm in, you have roles like Scrum Master, and you have Product Owner, and you have all sorts of communication-intensive roles that can be developed while you're doing technical communication as your day job, but then very much can be part of a career path for you. I've had about 7 or 8 people who are writers in my groups break into Agile and become certified Scrum Masters or Product Owners, things like that, Agile coaches, and they're doing wonderfully. So there's a high leverage between the communication skills, the critical thinking, and negotiation skills we've talked about, and certain careers in process-oriented fields like Agile.
Absolutely, and I'll just add to that. A lot of the folks, several folks that I know of and have worked with over the years, have also moved into marketing and product management from TechCom. So I think if you can get into a position like Stan's talking about and be able to build some of your skills around the TechCom work that you're doing, that can be really, really beneficial. Lots of opportunities.
Great, thank you, everyone. The last question that has come in is, I'm one of the desperate industry leaders who want to talk to students and faculty. How can I get involved?
Probably a question for Carlos, maybe.
I think one of the easiest way to connect is to go to the associations, like the Association of Teachers of Technical Writing, ATTW, or the Council for Programs in Scientific and Technical Communication, CPTSC, and they can disseminate those messages through interested programs. Or if you know somebody who is in your area and has a program in technical communication or technical writing, feel free, don't be shy, just contact them directly. And chances are there's people there who are desperate trying to establish these connections from the academic side.
Great, thank you, Carlos, and thank you, all wonderful panelists for today's webinar. And we'd like to thank everyone for attending today's broadcast. This will conclude today's webinar. You'll be able to access the recorded version of the webinar in the archive section of our website, and the Q&A will be posted on our website in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
Thanks, Adam.
Take care. Thank you.